This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Spartacus Coffee is made for and made by hustlers, entrepreneurs, peak athletes, self-starters, and free thinkers. Our community of coffee drinkers believe in lifting each other up to be the best version of ourselves we can be. On top of that, every sale goes to the nonprofit organization No Kid Hungry, a national effort to end childhood hunger in America. To learn more about that and order some of the best, richest coffee you can find at an affordable price, go to SpartacusCoffee.com and be sure to use my promo code. It's pretty simple. It's Jay Burke, which is JAYBURKE, and get 10% off your first order. Remember, Spartacus Coffee. We fuel the grind, we fuel the success, we fuel champions. We are Spartacus.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Welcome to American Audiophile, where we listen with a killer edge. And now please welcome your host, Patrick Bateman.
Do you like podcasts?
Oh, yes, I do.
The With Jay Burke Show podcast first came to my attention last year. It's a place for those with insatiable curiosities, those who yearn for civil, albeit occasionally winding conversations. The host, Jay Burke, masterfully guides his listeners through an assortment of topics. From the delicate nuances of public policy to the intricacies of day-to-day life, the show is like a masterclass in conversation led by Burke, who acts as your guide through the cacophony of the modern world.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
His approach isn't just academic. Either some episodes venture into the lighter side of existence, like sports and pop culture, giving listeners a delightful reprieve from the drudgeries of life. Each episode is a journey, not a destination. Burke doesn't care if it's a straight line or if it twists and turns like a thriller novel. He's there for the ride, and he wants you to be there.
You're right.
The podcast's core strength lies in its versatility. Whether he's dissecting philosophical musings, probing scientific wonders, or simply chatting about the latest in media, politics, or technology, Burke ensures that no topic is out of bounds. So, if you're looking to lose yourself in a maze of enlightening ideas, this is a podcast you can't afford to miss.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
His early work was a little too intellectual for my tastes.
Brother.
But when this podcast really comes into its own, it mixes thought-provoking content with a touch of humor. I'd highly recommend giving it a listen.
Yeah, hell yeah, let's go.
It won't always be a straight line.
It won't always be a straight line.
It won't always be a straight line.
But take the journey.
Take the journey.
Take the journey.
And escape a while for thoughtful excursions
Into the world of ideas across media,
politics, technology,
Pop culture.
and all realms of civic life. Take the journey.
Take the journey.
Take the journey.
Take the journey. Take the journey.
Take the journey.
You're listening to The With Jay Burke Show. $50. That number holds significant value across various domains, symbolizing major milestones and achievements. Celebrated as the Golden Jubilee in anniversaries, it marks the pinnacle of experience and success, particularly in long-lasting marriages. In mathematics, it represents a midpoint between 0 and 100. It's often used to denote half. In cultural and legislative contexts, a pivotal moment, such as turning 50 years old or achieving the necessary half of votes in legislative decisions like those in the U.S. Senate. Additionally, in religious traditions such as Christianity, 50 is spiritually significant, marking the day of Pentecost and the year of Jubilee. both of which signify times of renewal and liberation. See, only 11% of podcasts make it to 50 episodes. 90% don't even make it past the 3rd episode. The chance of a new podcast failing is 95%, according to new data from Podmatch. This is 50 episodes, and it feels strangely significant, mostly because I didn't know if I could do this, especially all by myself. And I've always been tentative to throw myself out there because, we all have, I think, some kind of fear of judgment or fear of failure or fear of even success creeping in. But here's the thing. Something told me to keep going. I don't really know what you call that thing inside that just eats at you. And it's something I've ignored many times before. I don't want to say ignored. I kind of pushed down. And there's always a weird sense of guilt that's associated with that. But not ignoring that gnawing feeling that I should do this, no matter how many excuses I gave myself, has been the most rewarding thing that I've done, at least on a personal level. See, there's so many reasons people start podcasts, and I wouldn't knock anyone for doing so. Some do it because they want to market to a bigger audience. Some people just want to build a personal brand, or maybe they're passionate about a subject and want to find people kind of like themselves. Some people want to start it to change the world, I guess. Have a voice and feel like they're doing something. I'm going to be honest. Most of the reason I did this was purely selfish in some ways. I mean, sure, there's this part of me that wants connection, and I feel like I've definitely gotten that, but I did this because I needed to prove something to myself, and it's just something I always wanted to do. And it's something now that became like an addiction. I'll never give it up. And then there's the other thing I like to think of as the selfish part, which is I love to talk about deep things with people. And it's funny, if you listen to my podcast and then you probably would talk to some of my friends growing up, I've actually been like low key insulted by people I know really well, who were, surprised at the depth that we could go into with the podcast, or, I've been told I was a little bit smarter than they thought I was, which I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Wasn't I always the smartest guy, I'm not. I know I'm not. And that's another reason I'm doing this, is because I love information. I love dissecting things, and I love to see it from a different angle. I think we're just so stuck in this weird age of everybody needs to know everything. And one of the things I love knowing is that I probably know nothing. I've said it in an episode before, and I still believe this is true. I think everyone, no matter what the topic is, unless it's like a science or a math or something like that, where there's more of a definitive answer. But I think when it comes to at least opinion or whatever it is, I think we're all a little right and very wrong. Like, we just tend to scratch the surface of things. I find the surface a little boring. And some of the ideas here were just because I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to talk to experts or educators or authors or just people from all walks of life, just to try to understand whatever topic we were talking about from a different angle or a little better. I just think, we could all do better at that. One of the things I wrote in the beginning when I was trying to figure out what this show was, and it's so much different than what I thought it was and what it was going to be. And I've learned that it's just a journey, man. It's just like you're just doing your thing, and it's going to evolve, and you just have to ride the wave. I was trying to start this podcast, was trying to figure out what the hell this thing really was. And I wrote this long thing, and it's on my website, but it was something like, we live in an amazing age, even if we fail to know it. Anything you want to know, anything you want to see, anything you want to look deeper at or listen to is at your fingertips for the simple fact that it's there. But there's so much noise in the world and so many voices coming at you all at once that the direction is sometimes difficult. And I like the idea of having people who could just cut through the chaos or the noise or whatever that is that just eats away at the world. So I take some solace in the fact that as a guy who just brain goes fucking all over the place, that maybe we could find some direction. And that's, really what the show is. And like I said, I kind of did it for myself. What I was surprised at was, so like I said, there were some selfish things. I wanted to make something that I enjoyed listening to. The biggest surprise to me is that there's tiny contingency of people who actually enjoy that. So this is a long rant. I don't even know why I'm doing this, but I felt like there's some significance to 50 episodes here. And that, I'm not exactly sure that any of this makes sense. I guess what I'm trying to say is if you feel the need to do something, right, I think you should do it. And I think everybody has access to do this. I know I've said in the past that not everyone should have a voice. What I mean by that is not everyone should have a voice that just wants to impress someone else or who wants to just sound. Nothing impresses me less than somebody who just regurgitates information just for the fuck of it. Like if I wanted to sound like Jon Stewart or something, would that really be impressive? Or pick whoever you want, but I don't think that's impressive. I think anyone who has a voice or has something to say or just something to get out should probably do it. And don't let the world tell you what you should do, because man, if I listen to the world, I mean, even when I was starting, it's even now, it's like so many people get so uptight about the fact that you could do something like this, that you could just take it on. And some people might even like make fun of you about it. But like most of that shit is just jealousy, right? Like they won't take a leap. They might just be sitting in a stagnant life. I mean, I'm not trying to make a fucking $1 million. I'm just enjoying myself. And I don't know. I just think if you got something to say and it's really, truly something from your heart that you want to do, I think you should just fucking do it. I just think you should do it. Because this is definitely something that taught me not to worry, like to just do what I needed to do. Why do we do anything? Who knows? Everybody has a million different reasons. But here's the other thing. I always call this show a journey. And it has been a journey since the beginning. My pal told me when I was starting this thing out, I went through like the whole schmeal of what I wanted to do. I need to have this kind of sound. I need to do this, but I have to do that. I have to do. He was like, listen, you can get something called paralysis through analysis. I mean, the first one was probably the worst. Not because of my chest. It was probably because I just didn't know what I was doing. But then you get to 10 and you're like, I'm a little better at this. And then you get to 25 and you think you're a little better. And then you get to 30 and 40 and then you're at 49. And now you think it's pretty special. I'm really just talking about podcasts. I guess it could be about anything, but just take a chance. Even if you record it and just fucking throw it out, which I might do with this, because this is, sometimes when I listen to myself just talking, it sounds like some sociopath's confession. Hope it doesn't sound like that to you, but I just want to take some time to thank the people who are listening. Because like I said, that's the most surprising thing is that I found a group of people. Like I found the best thing I could do when I was deciding what to do, because there was a million reasons to do it. And everybody says, pick one topic. And I said, nope, that's not how my ADHD brain works. I want to know everything. And I know I can't know everything. That's why I have guests on. Do whatever the hell you want, because what I decided, because I was driving myself crazy and I was trying to make this thing fucking perfect, was that Sorry for dropping so many F-bombs. When I get like open, I end up I just fucking curse. I don't know. Makes me feel cool. God, I really need guests on here. Anyway, this is why I script shit out, because I don't even know what I was talking about. Anyway, I just think that you should decide to do something that you would enjoy, right? So like, I try to make podcast episodes that I would enjoy listening to. The surprise has been that there's people who enjoy it with me, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so thankful at the people who, contribute to this, because it does help me keep going. I'm not saying that's, I think that's probably a poor reason to start a podcast, because it's very disheartening to know how many people actually listen to you in the beginning of a podcast. But, there are a lot of people who really helped me along the way. I have to throw out a thank you to Noah Kinsey, who just, when I first met him, it was through another person's podcast, and I had agreed to be on it. And it was my first invite to another podcast. And it was really early on when I started, so I instantly said yes. And then that dread took over, and I was like, shit, I probably should do some due diligence on this. So I checked out this guy, and I checked out this podcast, and I just happened to find the episode where Noah was his guest. And I thought, this guy's really good at this. And then I started listening to a few of his episodes, and I was like, wow, he's a really good podcaster. And I was like, God, I'd love to get to that level sometime. But we ended up meeting on that podcast at one point. And, he just took a keen interest in my podcast and helped me a lot. Helped me probably more than he knows at the early stages. Just would give me some tips or, some encouragement throughout it. And it kind of helped me believe I could do this. Because like I said, the toughest thing is throwing yourself out there, and it's really just getting over yourself. That's why I said in the beginning, like, if you think about doing something, not even just a podcast, something that puts you out there and probably gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit, I think you grow a lot more as a person doing stuff like that than watching other people do it. So anyway, I just had to throw him a thank you, because I was like 7 or 8 episodes in. I don't think he's doing the Coffee Time podcast as much, which is a great podcast. But if you get a chance, I know he's doing something new. I don't want to say a review. It's more like just a discussion about movies on a podcast called Knox and Noah. You definitely should check that out. Check out the Coffee Time podcast too, because it's kind of like this show where he just has conversations and talks to people. And I promise you won't be disappointed. I've also made friends doing this. So, I have to throw something out there to Smith at the Story Of, who has become a friend, not just in the podcast world, but a friend in the real world too, which is kind of refreshing, because there's no way we would have ever connected. So that's been great. Same thing with the other guys over there at Story Of, Joe C., who's a great guy that I've gotten to know, and Mike. Fun fact, I actually found their podcast on a podcast guest matching site. And I started talking to Smith through there. But when I saw that podcast, I said, motherfucker, that was a great idea for a podcast. Son of a bitch. And it's awesome. It was such a good idea. But, obviously they have a good rapport that makes it work. And I've been on that show enough now that the last one I was on, I didn't even introduce my podcast. I was like, whoever listens to this show should already know. So, another awesome podcast to check out is FDR's Wheelchair, which is politics driven, but they make it fun and palpable. Unless you don't like their politics, then you aren't going to have any fun, but they're definitely going to have more fun than you doing that. So shout out to Brandon and Dave, who are great guys. And actually, I have to say, I've literally done 2 podcast episodes with their podcast technically, and neither have been released because one is lost to time and space. It's somewhere in the ether of the universe. Just hopefully some other life form picked it up and realizes just how ahead of our time humans are. And that's the hope. But we won't talk about Smith losing that one. The other, I don't know. We recorded something in November that we were supposed to do a 3-parter, and then that just never came to fruition. So I have this awesome episode that's kind of out of date, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. I'm not perfect, people, but I think you'll be hearing some collabs soon with those guys and many others. Need to throw a thank you out to the Beebs, a guy I've really enjoyed getting to know and become friends with. Just a really genuine guy, really funny, and a deep thinker, has a great podcast that gives you practical advice called Finding Your Way. And we actually have a great conversation coming up on my podcast dealing with Christianity and just some of the questions that come up with belief. And I really admire his perspective and the way he looks at things. And what makes it fun is that we're coming at it from different angles, but like totally in a respectful way. So it was a pleasure to have him on and have that conversation. That'll be out soon. I also have to thank him because you may have heard I have a new intro, and he found that song and sent it to me. And that one just kind of took on a life of its own. But I have to thank him because I don't want to get sued by the Talking Heads or their representation, although that was a cover song. So I don't know how that works. And I've just admitted everything here. So when somebody comes to serve me, I don't know how to talk my way out of that, but I'll start a GoFundMe. You guys will save me, right? I probably need to thank the lady of the house. My wife, who puts up with my insane schedule with this thing. Seriously. And not just the recording. It's the editing process, which is like 80% of this shit. And talking and looking for possible guests. It's definitely more than she or I, for that matter, signed up for. I'm very lucky to have someone who understands and lets me do this crazy shit like turning the bedroom into a recording space. And then a big shout out to the Unfiltered Studio Network, who gave me this kind of home that I've always been looking for in the podcast community. And there's just so many amazing podcasts on there. And just so you know, it's not like anyone can just join this group. Unfiltered Studios actually curate their podcasts very carefully. This way, they're ensuring a high standard of content. So I'm just really lucky to be a part of that group, and I'm always thankful for that. And there's so much variety there. Podcasters like Mama D and her podcast, Pedals of Support. It's for anyone who needs a little motherly advice or just some extra love and support like we all need. There's also the Sleevy G Show, perfect for sports, movies, and video game enthusiasts, people who just want to enjoy a conversation like you're hanging out with somebody. That's the way I feel when I listen to it. There's different types of podcasts like Movie Lovers Unite, which is a must for movie buffs. I had the chance to go on their show and discuss Good Will Hunting. It was a fantastic experience, and I really think you should check it out. We really go into a deep dive into the film, and it was fun to relive that because I was a young man once with hopes and dreams and, kind of like Will, except without the smarts. But I definitely had his lack of direction. So that I could really feel that character. Now I kind of relate more to Sean the therapist. I'm kind of weathered and beaten and, life destroyed me a bit. I'm going to stop talking to you like you're my therapist. Sorry. If you like Star Wars and Marvel stuff or just, nerdy stuff, I don't know. Nerdy stuff. It's a fucking culture now. Everything's a fucking culture. Nerdy stuff is a culture. I happen to have grown up on all that stuff, but I never get to do it in this podcast, which is something I kind of always want to do, but I've never really gotten to do it. But if you're into that culture, check out the Fandalorians or the Geeky Dad podcast. They cover everything from Star Wars to Marvel to anything you might not have heard of even. So it's just a great way to enter that world. And it's all done in a fun and engaging way. I know I'm missing people here, but I'm doing this off the top of my head, and I'll do my best in future episodes to mention them. Speaking of which, as we make our way towards the climb to 100 episodes, I have some really cool stuff coming up along the way. I mentioned that Beebs and I will have an incredible discussion on Christianity, which Like I said, he was really cool to let me ask a lot of questions, and questions that I was kind of like, I don't know if I should ask this, but I did. And, to his credit, he had answers. And if he didn't have an answer, he was very open about that. And it was just such a cool conversation. Something I've always wanted to do on this show is touch religion or theology in some way. So that's going to be coming up really soon. And I mentioned before Josie from the Story Of podcast. Well, he was here for one of my more popular episodes, which was episode 37, which dealt with the subject of the Radium Girls. This time we're tackling philosophy, and particularly existentialism and the profound effect it had on our lives and the way it gave us peace in this chaotic world. But we also laugh a lot, and I promise that's a good one to check out. I will be trying to do some more solo episodes in the vein of my other stuff I've done, like anybody who's an early listener will remember that was my 7th episode, which took place around when Russia first invaded Ukraine, and I just went into a black hole of reading up on all sides of it. And that one was called the One-Man NATO Expansion Machine, and I really enjoyed making that one. There's other stuff I've done, obviously, in the past. I've done the allergy apocalypse one, which was supposed to be fun and just try to explain why I have to suffer April, May, and June. And I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the government and trees. I mean, there's other stuff in there, but those are the two big things. But anyway, those are old episodes. I'm going to be coming back with some solo stuff, tackling a 2-parter about cannabis prohibition, tentatively titled The Great American Cannabis Contradiction, unless I figure out a better name, but that's like the working title. But that's going to cover the history and players from the beginning in this country, the people who demonized or criminalized marijuana, and the unseen ramifications of that history. And I'm having a lot of fun looking into that. So that one will be coming out soon. I have most of it scripted out. I just got to record it, add some stupid, things in there, and then that'll be ready to roll. I've also promised myself I will finally be finishing the debt sentence with lessons 3 and 4. And if you haven't listened to these are the episodes I put so much into. You could really learn about the history of student loan debt and the unrealized promise of student loans. Just the mechanisms that were put in place to create what I call an American saga that always begins with good intentions and ends, as so many stories in this country do, with innocent borrowers in insurmountable debt they could never escape. While Sally Mae and big banks just profit and the feds turn a blind eye to the carnage that they helped cause. Anyway, lesson 3 is really going to be about the rise of student debt in the 90s and the battles between Clinton, Congress, and the overwhelming juggernaut that Sally Mae becomes. Now, lesson 4 will probably focus more on the post-2008 financial meltdown and the COVID crisis and whether or not this really worked. Could it have worked? And what options are on the table to address it? But I will unashamedly say that from a writing and mixing standpoint, I'm just super proud of these. And sometimes when I think maybe I suck or I'm down on myself or I shouldn't be doing this, I'll throw them on and feel good about myself. Maybe that's weird, but it's true. So if you don't like it, fuck you. Don't listen. Kidding. Listen. Fuck you still, but listen. I also have a long conversation coming up with a guy named Ben Hamilton who wrote a book called Sorry Guys, We Stormed the Capitol, which was an eyewitness account of January 6th. He was there at the Capitol just interviewing people when the chaos unfolded. And it's amazing to talk to a guy who has been on the ground. And not only that, he's been all over the country talking to different citizens and, just getting a ground level perspective that's unique. That's something that the mass media misses in all its political posturing. So that one was a lot of fun. That'll be coming out soon. And this has gotten out of hand. This was just my way of saying thank you to everyone who supported me on this journey. Can't wait to see what the future holds, the incredible guests we'll meet, and just thank you to the people who are with me and listen to me. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. And thank you to Patrick Bateman for, for taking some time out of his murderous schedule and reviewing my podcast. Yeah, you have to. Thank you. All right, I'm getting out of here. You guys stay great. I want to thank you for taking some time out of your day today and listening to the show. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to learn more about the topics discussed in this episode, check out our show notes at my website, jburkshow.podbean.com. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, or wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts so you never miss out. You can also follow us at JBurk Show on Twitter and Instagram and JBurk17 on TikTok for the latest updates and going-ons behind the scenes. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review. It helps us improve and grow the show, and each and every one of you has such an impact on that, and I can't thank you enough. Join us next time, and remember,
it won't always be a straight line, but take the journey and escape a while for thoughtful excursions into the world of ideas across media, politics, technology, pop culture, and all realms of civic life.
You're listening to the With Jay Burke Show.